Welcome to Converciti Podcasts. My name is Priya Marik, and today we are talking about a petition that makes it compulsory to have mental health education across schools in India. It is my great pleasure to introduce today's guest, Ronit Ranjan. Ronit is an ex-Indian Army cadet, an NLP professional, a life coach, a fitness and nutrition coach, a public speaker, and author of the memoir, The Mighty Mustang, which has an intriguing subtitle. You can take a soldier out of the army, but you can't take the army out of the soldier. Most recently, however, Ronit has been on an incredible journey on foot, all the way from Kanyakumari to Leh, to raise awareness about mental health, and more specifically, to raise awareness about a petition that makes it compulsory for the Ministry of Education to have mental health education all across Indian schools. Welcome, Ronit. It is an absolute delight to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Priyam, for having me here.
So tell me now, where exactly are you now on the journey, and how did all of this begin, this decision to go for this incredible walk?
So right now I've walked around 450 kilometers. I started with Tamil Nadu. I'm still in Tamil Nadu. I'm at this town called Salem, and I'll be leaving Salem tomorrow. The idea of the petition came in 3 months ago. I had been very vocal about mental health. For the past 2-3 years, I've been collaborating with different organizations, pages online as well. But after a lot of observations, I realized that it's a very privileged thing in the sense that while I was being able to communicate the importance of mental health all around the social media, and I was based in Bangalore, so it was easier to get it there. I realized that more than half of the Indian population does not have access to the internet or a phone or a signature for that, or an email ID for that matter, right? The basic question I ask myself is, how do I reach out to the underprivileged section of the society? Because if you look at the stats, like says that 28 students die by suicide every day in India. Most of them are from the rural areas, and I wanted to figure out a way to address it to them as well. So the idea of a petition came in because education is a fundamental right. Now in India, while we're the biggest democracy, it's difficult to individually reach out to everyone. You can find out an agency which reaches out to someone, in this case being education, and if you can add on something there which reaches everyone, then maybe it would address that. So I took education as an agency, and I went through the entire NEP 2020 and the Manodarpan initiative taken by the government. Like, it's appreciable. But the thing is, it's very incomplete, because when we talk about mental health, there are different layers to it. We first have the normalizing conversations. We have, breaking the stigma. We have the general information about the most common kinds of mental illness. And then comes a lot of things like, life skills and social emotional learning and parents and teachers training. What the government has done right now is kind of worked on the safety net, but the education is not there. So I 15 years now, right? So you have to address it now. While I was not a firm believer of online petitions, I saw a couple of petitions bearing fruition recently that kind of restored my faith in petitions, and I started one. And I was getting online signatures, but I had to increase the speed, and I had to reach out to as many people as possible. The same thought popped up. It was basically like, how do I get petition signatures of people who do not have a phone, who do not have an email ID, right? The answer was quite simple. If you want to tell the rural people all across the country about mental health, the easiest, like the most basic way is to just go tell them. So I decided just go tell them, and decided that I'll walk the entire country for mental health. It does a lot of things. It's been around 18 to 20 days, and the biggest realization I have about, and this is something I can say only on my generation behalf as a Gen Z. We say so much, but we do so little, and we do so little because we understand so little. So it's important that you understand how things work, how are the dynamics in different states. Because while you can talk about mental health, when you actually go to these different states, every state has their perception of mental health. The statistics change in every state. For example, Tamil Nadu right now has the highest statistics, and I'm glad that 3 days ago, Madras High Court has raised questions to the government, asking 22 questions, holding the government accountable for it. So as I'm moving, I'm getting to understand the perspective of, let's say, principals and deans. I keep giving talks to these schools. Students are not being called, but the staff and faculties are coming. So I'm visiting schools and colleges as I go. At the same time, I'm also meeting common people, like shopkeepers. I'm meeting farmers. I'm randomly meeting people on the road and playing this audio file recorded in Tamil, because I don't understand Tamil. So I play that, and some of them, actually end up scribbling. They don't even know how to put a signature, so they scribble in the offline petitions that I'm carrying. So the offline signature, yes, the number counts, but it has a symbolic meaning in the sense that every district that I'm walking, I'm getting these offline signatures. So the idea is to make it into a big campaign so that everybody talks about it. Media attention is also required. The moment media gets involved, they start asking questions to the government. The moment they demand a statement from the government, it pressurizes the government to give an answer. The moment they give a response to it, they get involved and they have to do something about it. That's one. Second is the outright number of online signatures that we need. We need it in lakhs. I'm glad to tell you that we just crossed 10,000 signatures, but we have to get in lakhs just to put pressure. And again, the walk itself, while it's to get the signatures, it's to spread awareness as much as we can. So I'm doing it under the project name called NH Mental Health. And the idea is like, just how the NH, the National Highway, connects the entire country. This project will bring mental health to every part of the country. So I was thinking, okay, I have started a petition, but how do I get government's attention, right? How do I get people's attention, right? Because in India, we have so many problems and so many petitions are raised on a daily basis. So many applications are forwarded to the ministries, to the Prime Minister's office. It's basically like if you were the decision maker, and if I walk up to you and I say that, sir, I think this is important, you should take a look. You will say, yes, I get it, but I have hundreds of different applications, so you'll probably keep it aside. But if I were to tell you that, sir, I'm walking the entire country, leaving everything behind for a couple of months now, and I have lakhs of signatures with me and everybody's talking about it. And when I say everybody, people from the metro cities, also people from the different districts and blocks and Anganwadi everywhere. Can you please take a look? You might take a look. So it's all a game of probability and possibility. And the idea is to hit the center with maximum intensity, which is why the walk is divided into two phases. Phase one would be Kanyakumari to Delhi, which is a 3,000 kilometer walk, and then from Delhi to Ladakh. So as we're going, we're getting a lot of momentum. We've got a good response from Tamil Nadu. And I'm hoping that as I keep moving, my next state would be Karnataka. And as I keep moving forward, we gain more momentum. And hopefully, we get a response from the minister.
Do you have a time period in mind as to how long you see this entire walk?
Given an average of how I'm walking right now, I will be reaching Delhi by mid-April. And then the official work will take time in Delhi. So I'll probably have to stay for 2 weeks there. And from Delhi to Leh, I'll start in May. So the entire walk might end anywhere end of May or beginning of June.
So this is going to be for the long haul, at least for the next few months. But the next question that I want to ask is, you said you are already interacting with different schools, you're interacting with professors and the faculty over there. So what has been their response? Are they enthused by something like this? Do they feel that something like this was really urgent and needs to happen as soon as possible? Or have you seen certain doubts?
Yes. So let's say out of 10, 7 have responded positively. And 1 has been doubtful and 2 have discarded it entirely. They discarded simply because, it's easier to discard. The problem is that we don't have metrics to calculate wellness when it comes to mental health, It's easy to have the metrics in physical education. You can have you have weight, you have BMI, you have yoga, and all of that. Mental health, you don't have. So it's easier for an organization to do away by saying things like, we do have a 1-day mental health workshop, or we observe mental health day. Like that's the fanciest thing that all these institutions do. 10th of October, they celebrate, they observe a mental health day. It's easier to check that list off. So a lot of these, let's say out of 10, 2 of them said that, that we do have, a 1 week thing. But 7 of them the response have been good. The best part was that, at least in Tamil Nadu as of now, is that the schools have taken the idea very seriously and they have welcomed it with open arms. And they actually said that it's very urgent. They appreciated what's being done. And in their capacity, they're also helping me out in spreading the word. A lot of principals are, I'm in touch with principals, constantly, they're giving me updates. If CBSE is giving them an update, if they're getting something from the NCRT, that's going on. So as of now, it's been good. I'm only expecting that, that 7 out of 10 to go to a 10 on 10. But there are always reservations, to be honest. Recently, I visited a college wherein, I just couldn't go through. I stuck for 2 hours, but I just couldn't go through the dean because his idea of mental health was based on the concepts of joint family and spirituality and all of that. So I just couldn't get through him. So we obviously there are obstacles, and I don't expect to convince everyone, but I do expect to convince the majority.
Absolutely. And I think there will, of course, be numerous fault lines that you'll have to contend with and different perceptions of
Yeah.
mental health all across the country. But tell me something.
Sure.
The NEP, the National Education Policy, has proposals for introducing what they call mental health checkup for students. But what you are suggesting is a proper curriculum that has
Hmm.
maybe weekly classes or perhaps even daily classes if required.
Yeah.
So could you elaborate on that vision? Like what exactly would mental health education be in schools? How would you differentiate between teaching it to a 5-year-old kid
Okay.
vis-a-vis a 15-year-old kid?
I would like to say, as I mentioned before, it has different layers. So the checkup you said is more of a safety net, right? And if I were to give you an analogy, let's suppose I had a cut, right? And my dad brings a bottle of medicine and keeps it on the cupboard, right? And he basically tells me that you can help. This will fix it, right? Now the thing is, I have a couple of questions. A, why should I believe that medicine is gonna fix, right? B is, why should I trust my dad? Because this has never happened before. C, let's say I decide to take that medicine, but what will happen that my friend who's sitting next to me, he'll make fun of me because I'm not, let's say, man enough in this case, right? Because there's a lot of stigma attached to it. So you bring the same concept to mental health as well, because we have repositories. So the NEP, what it has done, they have given a lot of repositories, advisories. They've also given like a counseling helpline number. So they have given a lot of stuff online on different websites. They're also airing a couple of webinars on a daily basis as well. But the thing is, instead of expecting the students to reach out, you have to get the counselors and mental health into the classroom, right? Because the students have been contained in the classrooms and limited because of the stigma and other factors for so long that they're not coming out. So you have to reach out as well. So what the NEP has done, I'm glad that for the first time the NEP mentioned the word mental health. It has mentioned it twice, right? But it has not addressed it completely. So what my ask is basically that. So I do acknowledge that you gave me, let's say, 1 out of 4 things that I'm asking, but there are 3 more things that you need to do. Because when you expect someone to go visit or just call this helpline number, you need to encourage. There's something called encouraging help-seeking behavior when it comes to mental health. You have to encourage them. You have to normalize the entire process. How will you normalize them? When you educate your kids about that, when you educate your students about that, which is when mental health education becomes important. That's where curriculum becomes important. Now, when I say curriculum, it doesn't mean adding it as a subject, right? B.Ed, maybe already have it as a subject, but then it becomes a paper that you have to clear, so nobody gives a damn. And this is me interviewing a lot of B.Ed people only. Because the thing is, when while we are talking about reducing the syllabus, this cannot be added as a syllabus. Like mental health education or this curriculum cannot be great. So how does that happen? It becomes through life skills training. It happens through workshops. It happens through public-private partnership, right? We have a lot of NGOs and foundations working towards this. We do have resources there. And it hits a big chord, because there's a lack of psychologists in India. We have 0.07 psychologists for 1 lakh people. And although CBSE has mandated one counselor per school, it doesn't happen on ground at all. And this is me. Of all the schools that I've interviewed, I've only found 1 school which was following that. So that doesn't happen on ground. Let's say it also happens in 1 school, you have more than 1,000, 2,000 students, and 1 counselor is not enough. So how do you kind of accommodate all of them? It's through when you educate second, you train the teachers and parents how to deal with it. You kind of delegate the entire load that comes to a psychologist, and that only happens through education. And why education? Why I'm stressing on a mandatory curriculum? Because the moment you give it as an option, it becomes so-called fancy workshop, and people are not going to take it seriously. I'm sure if people would have been taking it seriously, we would not be seeing the spikes in the suicide rates that are happening. So in India, let's say as simple as a mask, right? Nobody wears a mask in India, but the moment they put fine, there's a negative sanction to it. People started wearing masks. So we have this mentality that unless it's put on us with a sanction or something, we do not respond to it. So a mandatory, that's very important. I keep stressing that it has to be mandatory so that everybody follows it. Framework of the curriculum. I'm still talking to a lot of psychologists and different stakeholders to kind of get more sense into, what are the different things that needs to be included and stuff like that. And it's only going to grow as I keep moving forward and I keep visiting more states and get more perspective. You can't have like, one stop solution for everything. It has to be customized for every kid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, what I want to know from you is, of course, all of us have had some or the other psychological issues, whether it's been sadness, distress, for some cases, depression as well. But have you personally had some experiences that made you think more about mental health and really inspired you to take this cause forward?
It has actually. That's how it all started. So my dream was to get in the armed forces, and I cleared my NDA after 12, and I was living my dream. And in the second year of my training, at the end of the second year of my training, a back injury ended my career in the armed forces. That was back in 2017, and I was suicidal back then because my entire life, revolved around the armed forces, and I worked my entire school life for that. So I was suicidal, and after that, it's a long story, the entire medical history and all of that. I'm not going to get into the details, but after that, when I started doing my graduation from Christ, I was diagnosed with depression and PTSD. My PTSD still relapses from time to time. So that's when I got to know about these things. That's when I got to know that there's something like depression, there's something like PTSD, something called mental health. That's when I started reading more about it. I started visiting more therapists and counselors, and so the combination that I studied had a lot of literature regarding psychology and mental health around it as well, and that's how I started getting exposed to this field. And then like one thing led to the another, and I started engaging with different people, with more organizations. I had a lot of conversation in Niman. Niman's very resourceful that way, and that's when I started writing. Writing became a release. I'm a poet, and I started writing pieces about it. So initially, we started, as an emotional escape, kind of became this tool when I was able to express more things. And then one thing led to the another, and I was giving talks in a couple of places, and that went on for a year or so. And after that, I started reading. I started, deliberately reading more so that I was able to handle things more. And like after I was done with graduation, I got myself certified as a life coach. I did NLP and all of that, to add that credibility and that experience as well. And I started speaking to students as well. So I'm not a qualified psychologist, so I don't deal with mental illness, but there are a lot of other things, the social and the emotional well-being and the other parts. I do it as a life coach. Although I am planning to study psychology, it's there on my list. So this is how I basically came to where I am. And I think most of the people who are, involved in mental health awareness have had their journey as well. So I think it kind of gives it just gives you this sense of involvement. It keeps you attached to the cause as well, because, because you were there, you don't want someone else to be there. Or even if someone is there, you want to give them a support system. Same thing when it comes to like this, what I'm doing right now as a school student. I'm done. I'm done with my studies. I'm not there in school anymore. So it's not going to help me, but it is going to help all those kids that, that they need help, they need the support system basically. So the education system is going to give you that. You can't expect to just educate the students and, let them go, there needs to be a safety net around them, which is why parents and teachers become very important. So you have to create that safe environment, a very fruitful environment, wherein students can speak out and it can be addressed then and there.
Absolutely. And do you think that apart from encouraging students to speak out, we also need certain paradigm shifts in terms of our perceptions as a society, especially around the definition of success? Because most of the times we see people go into depression or develop these mental illnesses is usually when professionally or even as students academically, they are not able to succeed. So do you think somewhere down the line we need to change how we perceive success and how much importance we place on success for students as well as for professionals?
Of course, I believe the success of the definition of success is very flawed, in the sense there's a difference between pursuing something and running behind something. If there's no fulfillment in what you're doing, you're always gonna feel a void, right? And this reminds me of this very small clip that actually was on social media. Bob Marley's interview, in which he was asked, "Are you rich?" And he said, "What kind of richness are you talking about?" He said, "You have a lot of money and all." He said, "I don't have that kind of richness. I have more of life." I think that's a very beautiful example of what success is. I think it's all about fulfillment at the end. A lot of us run so much. One of my favorite coaches, Tony Robbins, he said that we have to master in life. We have to master two things. First is the science of achievement, which everybody talks about, and second is the art of fulfillment, which nobody talks about. It's important both. If I were to give you the example, one of my icons is Robin Williams. Everybody loved Robin Williams, right? He mastered the science of achievement, but he couldn't master the science of fulfillment, right? And we did see what happened. So it's very important that we change the definition, and it starts. And I don't blame students here, because this is where the parents and teachers come into picture. The entire rat race, you fetching more marks and getting the corporate, and it. I mean, while there's a lot of structural aspects attached to it, we can't do away with the entire thing. Like we can't just advocate something, like you should do away with that. But it has to be more sensitized. It shouldn't be compartmentalized. So definition, yes, paradigm shift needs to be there. But while we say that, like it's good to say that if paradigm shift needs to be there. But the thing is, while I say that, I also need to think of more alternatives as to what could be the definition of success. Do we have that metrics? Are we working on those metrics? So I do hear a lot of people saying that, the definition of success should change, but I don't see a lot of people suggesting what needs to be there. So I would rather, think of more ways in which I could define success. For me, it's mostly fulfillment and gratitude, and just the sense of being in a good space. Although, yes, some kind of materialistic success also matters for me, because, the basic amenities need to be there, and I have my desires for my family and my loved ones as well. Yes, obviously it's there, but there needs to be a threshold. There needs to be a capping to some of the things. So I think that's my definition. Obviously, it changes with people, but I think that's my definition of success.
Yes,
it's content at the end,
mm-hmm.
and feeling. For me, service is a big thing. I feel that if I'm serving to the society, that's how I get my fulfillment. So that's my definition of success.
Absolutely. Now, let me get into the aspect of social media. Now, of course, social media is an important part of your campaign, and you've gotten all these petitions online. A lot of it is being done through social media. But how do you see the role of social media with respect to mental health? Because, every time we open an Instagram or we open a Facebook, we usually see the happy sides of people, the curated lives of people, which often differs from what it is in ground level reality. So how do you see social media coming into this, and how would you potentially inculcate the role of social media in a proper curriculum?
It's actually a very tricky thing. It's a double-edged sword, because let's take a classic example. When you open Instagram and if you see 10 stories wherein they talk about how depressed the country is, it saddens you. It's not a very pleasant thing to see. It does affect you. So it's there. The other side to it will be like, it would make you more aware, sensitive, right? So it's there. Regulation is important on social media. I find that, especially, so I'm very active in Instagram. I cannot speak on other platforms like on their behalf. But what I see is that there's no regulation of content. Anyone can put anything. There's no fact checking as such. And I think that's the big thing, like fact checking, like just opinions and facts are different things, and the people put up a lot of opinions, under the name of facts. So I think there should be regulation in terms of that. Second would be the entire usage, the kind of content that we consume, the kind of things we follow, be it as simple as it could be a meme for that matter. I think while we say that we need to be sensitized on social media as well. Consumption, again, reduced. There's a lot of research that says that, screen time gives you this dopamine high. And, when you're so used to the high all the time, even normal feels the low. And then you think that the normal is low. So you have to know what a normal is, right? And it could be done in small things. For example, like it came out of a reaction, but I watched this documentary called Social Dilemma on Netflix. And I just switched off my notifications, and ever since my notifications are off. And it has actually reduced my screen time to half. And it's not that I'm missing out on anything. Whenever I want to check my social media, I pick up my phone and I do check my social media. But now it's not the same thing that happened before. The moment something pops up, I'll end up checking it. So coming back to your question as to, when you see there are so many mental health pages that I see right now, so many pages, right? You just type it, you will find a lot of pages. While it's good, I observe that a lot of mental pages is more about aesthetics now. It has become like a social media aesthetic, right? Wherein people are mostly concerned about, oh, I've seen people glorifying mental illnesses as well, sharing memes regarding that. That that I feel normalizing the entire glorification of mental illness is also not the right thing. So I think we need to have a regulating body. I think a regulate because I'm no one to tell people to stop consuming content. That's their data, their life. I can't interfere in that. But I would like to see if there's some kind of regulation, more fact checking on social media. I think that is the only way what I feel is the rest, because I can't expect people to reduce the amount of content. It's not gonna. It's only gonna increase. So what I can say that if it's regulated by some authority, then maybe it might help.
Yes, absolutely. I think what happens often on social media is that there is greater optical allyship than there is genuine empathy. So I
Yeah.
hope that, across time we see a change in that. But tell me something, do you have a team of policy people that you're working with or policy experts that are actually giving you the details about how you can come up with a proper framework, a proper blueprint? Have you maybe at some level also been inspired by
Okay.
any of the models in other countries, maybe in Scandinavia, for instance? So how has that played a part in
Yes.
creating
Yes.
your vision?
Hmm. So Florida has a mental health curriculum. Africa has a proposed mental health curriculum, and there are a couple of foundations in India which have proposed one. And today I got to know that the British Council also works towards mental health curriculum as well. So I just today downloaded the document. So we're going through that as well. At the same time, I'm also working with a set of psychologists to get more inputs on that. At the same time, I'm working with a team of people, like college going people as well, to get that input as well. I'm also speaking to a couple of lawyers. One of them is a Supreme Court lawyer to get the legal aspect of it as well. So the idea is to also kind of propose this framework that we could get as many input as I can, and then run through it with different stakeholders, and then propose that to the government as well. So that is being going on, and yes, it needs a lot of research. We keep adding a couple of things every day. We kind of keep removing every day, and I'm hoping another big aspect is like as I keep moving forward state to state, I'm getting a lot of inputs as well from the inside. A couple of inputs I get from the inside as well, and as I connect with people. So we keep polishing it every day, but yeah, we are working on a different set of teams when it comes to this curriculum. Yeah.
Right. So I'll get to my final set of questions now, and let's assume that the petition that you've started and everything, all of it pays off, and God wishing that it does, and it brings in a change, and curriculum is become mandatory. Mental health becomes a seminal part of school education. What then? How do you then see taking this forward? Have you thought about that, or is this something that
Yeah.
is just about the petition, or is it now an important part of your life?
See, as of now, given the present context, like my entire life is revolving around this, literally. Uh, so see, the target right now is to hit the schools, get it into the schools, right? Yes, we do have a long-term vision for it. Once this is successful, once this is done, we do plan to expand this to the organization, to the corporate world as well, because we also need to address it there. Because the fancy thing about the taking like the checklist which always gets ticked in corporate, that happens there, and it's also required there. There's a lot of pressure and a lot of things go unseen there. So we need to address it there. But my primary concern were the students, because that's where it all starts. I do have plans for the entire project in future, but that's in future. Right now, the entire focus is to get this curriculum done, get this into fruition.
Right. And finally, is there a message you have for any member of government that might potentially chance upon this video? Anything you want to tell them before you perhaps end up actually meeting them in person?
Okay. If anybody watching, sir or ma'am, I request you talk about it. Please talk about it to everyone. Please reach out to Pokhriyal sir and tell him that this is happening and this is very important. If you get the chance to meet our Prime Minister, please tell him that something is happening like this and ask him to do something about it. And a lot of stakeholders, we all need to do this together. This is not my petition or my fight. This is everybody's fight. And we owe it to the ones who are suffering right now, and we owe it to the ones that we've lost. So we owe it to everyone. So please, let's get mental health in school.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ronit. I wish you all the best. Yours is an inspirational story. It's an inspiring campaign. And hopefully there will be more and more signatures flooding in. And we will put the description of your website as well. We will attach the link so
Thank
that
you.
our viewers can go and directly contribute and make their voices
Appreciate
heard
it.
as part of this great campaign. Thank you so much again for joining us on Converciti. We wish you all the best.
Thank you
Stay
so
safe.
much.
Take care.
Okay. Thank you. Take care. Dan.
Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that conversation with Ronit Ranjan. We have his website's link in the description below. Do visit his website, sign the petition, and add to the growing number of voices that he needs to make his campaign successful. If you like this video, press the like button and do subscribe to our channel Conversity. If you want to get the latest updates, do not forget to click the bell button. Until next time, with more stimulating conversations, stay safe and take care.